How's it going, everyone? I am Pedantic Gamer, and today I'm talking about some very exciting, albeit admittedly expected news, which has come along with the Killzone 3 Trilogy collection announcement, / trailer really. The game I'm playing in the background is of course Killzone 3, and in this gameplay I feel like I make excellent use of the jetpacks. Let me know what you think. Now, what I'm excited about of course is Killzone HD, which has been announced as part of the Killzone Trilogy pack. I shall leave a link in the description to the trailer, which is basically just a mashup of footage from all three main games in the Killzone series, with Visari's speech from the introduction of the first Killzone game, and whilst I say just, it is a very epic little trailer, so definitely check it out if you are a fan of Killzone, even if you are not all that interested in the Trilogy pack itself. Now first I shall talk about Killzone HD, as that is what I imagine most people are interested in regarding this package. So what is it that we know? Well, I've noticed many calling this a Killzone 1 remake, which I would like to point out is very unlikely to be the case. Now, why is this? Well, earlier this year it was announced that Killzone 1 would come to the PSN as a direct port, which was going to be a no-frills port. That means no trophies, it was going to run at the standard PlayStation 2 resolution, etc. And the dates of its release came and went, with it simply not ever appearing on PSN, which was much to my displeasure as my PS2 no longer runs, and thus I currently have no way of playing the first Killzone. Next, the official comments were removed regarding its release, which was then followed up by a statement which simply stated that its release had more or less been delayed indefinitely. At this point is when I first speculated that we would likely see such a collection pack and a HD re-release of the original Killzone. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means that this quote-unquote remake has had little time to be developed. We also know it runs at 720p, or at least that is what has been stated. Essentially what I'd expect is essentially what we have seen with other HD collections on the PlayStation 3, which is more or less a direct port with a high resolution, and not a remake using the engine Killzone 2 and 3 utilised, unfortunately, although that of course would be amazing, and if that turns out to be the case, I will be extremely happy and excited, of course. It is interesting to note that it runs in 720p though, as other HD collections have run at 108p and had 3D support. Now whilst this box does state that there is 3D and move support, that could just relate to Killzone 3, which already has both. So I wouldn't necessarily expect 3D support or move support for the first Killzone. In fact, 3D support might exist, but move support almost certainly will not. Now, one other area I'm very interested to see what happens in is the frame rate of Killzone 1 HD. That is, what will it run at? Will it run at 30 FPS or 60 FPS? Now, prior HD collection games like God of War Collection run at 60 FPS as opposed to their original 30 FPS like the first Killzone. Whilst this hasn't been confirmed, I'd very much so like to be able to play the first Killzone at 60 frames per second as opposed to 30 FPS, even if this meant I had to play it in 720p as opposed to 108p. Preferably, of course, I prefer to have both, that is, it running at 108p and at 60 FPS like most of the HD collections we have seen. Now, Killzone HD has also been confirmed to have trophies, which is of course by no means a deal breaker if it didn't, but it is still extremely nice to see that this feature will be present nonetheless. And one last note regarding Killzone HD is that there will be no multiplayer. That is, the multiplayer in the original Killzone will not be included and has been completely cut. Now, this is of course very disappointing to say the very least, so whilst this release is a nice addition for all Killzone fans, and those wanting only to play the single player, it is by no means a definitive release, at least in my mind. Don't take that the wrong way, I shall definitely be picking up Killzone HD, I just won't be picking it up and replacing my Killzone 1 PS2 disc. I'll be holding on to that, even though I imagine that the multiplayer in the original Killzone at this stage is most likely dead. I haven't been able to check it out though for quite some time, because as I previously stated, my PS2 has broken down. I do want to replace it at some stage, I just haven't had the opportunity yet. I've had other things I've been wanting to spend my money on basically, and it's unfortunate that the PS3 dropped PlayStation 2 support, which some cynical people might say is so they could actually release these HD collections, but then again we are getting a noticeable boost in quality with most of them, with higher resolution, higher frame rates, and 3D support, so I can't really complain about that. Now, moving on to Killzone 2 and 3. Both games seem to be as they were originally, except they will also contain all the DLC that was released for them, which is of course a fantastic thing. We don't know if it's going to be included on the disc. I imagine it'll be a code that you get which will allow you to download them for no additional cost, so that could be a positive or negative depending on your point of view. Now with Killzone 3 this is definitely fantastic because, especially with the multiplayer only purchase option, which comes with all the DLC. Most games have the DLC, so if you don't have all the Killzone 3 DLC, I find that you can often struggle to find matches. Unfortunately in Killzone 2 this is of questionable value. Whilst the maps are fantastically designed and they are very fun, in recent times I've found it very hard to find any games that actually utilise the DLC map packs in Killzone 2, unlike Killzone 3 where it's very hard to do the opposite, find matches without all the DLC, at least from my experience. Now, as I was saying, the DLC map packs in Killzone 2 are fantastic, and you can have a great time with them in Bot Zone even if you don't play them online, so it is still fantastic value. Sorry if my voice got a bit soft there, I moved my microphone away from me as I've been talking, so I apologise for that. Now there's very little else to say regarding Killzone 2 and 3 in this collection, as very little will have changed with them outside of this, or nothing essentially will have changed. Some may speculate that Killzone 2 will be updated to include the move controls and 3D support. I don't think so, as that would likely be prohibitively expensive, and there is little need for Guerrilla Games to do such a thing, as if they do it, all the fans who already own Killzone 2 and are interested in such features will really want or even demand that the features be provided via a patch, and if it wasn't, it would create a situation where customers were largely dissatisfied and maybe feel like they were a little ripped off, as they've already paid for the game, and they paid, often in my case for example, they'll have paid full price. So they'll have paid more and they'll get less. And unless Guerrilla Games release a patch, that's unlikely to go away, even possibly with people who aren't interested in such features and just feel that they have the right to it, or that maybe not they have the right, but it really should be provided to them as well, because, well, they supported them from the get-go. Now this might sound a little bit like needy or demanding, but I do kind of understand how that feeling could come about. Although, once again, I don't see it happening. It's a lot of work it would be, I imagine, to actually implement these features into Killzone 2, so I imagine it'll just be Killzone 2 with the DLC via a code. And somewhat finally, I would like to note that Killzone HD as an individual release has not been announced, though I doubt it will not happen. In fact, I'm willing to bet that it will see a same-day release, or very close to it, depending on when your PSN store updates, of course, to the Trilogy's release date in stores. So I wouldn't be too worried if you already own Killzone 2 and 3 and you don't want to have to repurchase them. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I just want to point out that it actually hasn't been announced to be available on its own, unless it has been announced and it's been buried under all the other information regarding Killzone on the web. I can't find any information. If it has, please let me know, so I'm not giving out misleading information, but from what I've read and seen, it has not been confirmed to have its own release. But then again, even with other HD collections like the Ratchet & Clank Trilogy HD collection that was released recently, that never had a confirmed individual release as far as I can remember either. But once again, they all had individual releases on the PlayStation Store, so there's nothing to really be too concerned about there, if you indeed were concerned at all, which I imagine most of you probably weren't, because it's kind of to be expected that they'll get individual releases anyway at this point in time with HD collections. Though once again, this is kind of a different situation, because it's only one game that's been updated and the other two are just PS3 games that are going to be included in the collection. Now, as I'm talking about this collection, I should probably note that it releases this October the 23rd, at least that's the date that's been given for America, kind of like the Killzone apparent Killzone release on PSN originally. We haven't actually had any confirmation in other parts of the world like Europe and Australia from what I've seen, so we don't know when it's going to release then, or if it's going to just release at the same time, or if we'll get it earlier, later, or anything. I've checked around the local stores and the local websites for local stores that sell games, and there's no information on it yet, so I'll keep you updated with that if I actually find out about that in a time that's actually useful. So if I find out a week after it's announced for Australia, I obviously won't probably do a video on it, but if I do find out right as it's been announced, I might do a video on it. But I'm personally very excited for this. I don't know about the people who are watching this video, or how many people have even made it to this point in the video. If you have, congratulations and thank you very much. It is very much so appreciated, and I do hope you're enjoying it. Now, I am interested to see who will be picking up this collection, who previously picked up Killzone 2 and or 3, but then decided to actually trade it back in. Are you going to give it another go? Hopefully this breathes new life into both the Killzone 2-3 multiplayer, or more life in Killzone 3's case. And Killzone 2 doesn't have many players. I think it's in just a few hundred players a day, unique players, but the fact is it's got a server browser, which means it's still easy, and always will be for a very long time, to find full matches. So Killzone 2 doesn't affect so much, because I still doubt that it's going to be enough to become popular enough that there'll be actual Australian servers, but it is going to really help out Killzone 3, I imagine, just as the multiplayer only portion being available on PSN did, which of course also meant the quality of players degraded and it was much easier to get good gameplay, which is very useful if you're trying to do a YouTube commentary like I am right here. Now this is somewhat of a double-edged sword as well, because whilst it does make it easier at times, that can also be boring, but the bigger issue is I've been put into games with people in Warzone and operations and they don't know what they're doing, they're very low levels, so I can't really blame them for it, and Killzone does a fairly good job of telling you what to do. In fact, I say does a terrific job, but actually getting to the stage where you're actually able to do that well and effectively is another matter altogether. So you're left with these very imbalanced games at times, although this hasn't been a huge issue in the last few months, but when the Killzone multiplayer pack first released, it became a huge issue, along with the massive amount of glitching that was going on at that point in time, although that has really decreased recently in the last month or two. I very rarely come across any glitches at all, and as far as I'm aware, Guerrilla Games have not patched the game to actually remove these glitches, so it's interesting to see that those glitches are moving on, which is of course fantastic for the game, because whilst I'm not against glitching per se, if you do it in your own private lobby, or you do it with people who are all agreed to be glitching, then it's not an issue, but so many people were doing it in public matches. When you're just trying to have a good time, it really got in the way, and kind of was very annoying. Not kind of annoying, but was extremely annoying, because you'd have to be careful of people floating in the middle of the air, or just being in locations that you wouldn't expect them to be in, because the map wasn't designed with the locations these people get glitching to in mind. It just wasn't expected that they would be there, so it really breaks the balance of the maps, and I did just do a video on the maps themselves, and I'm going to do another video, but ultimately the maps are very well designed for the most part, but with the glitches, even the fantastic maps, although there is one or two maps that I really don't like and I think are poorly designed, even the fantastic maps break down and become kind of just unfun to play when lots of people are glitching. Although, as I was saying, don't let that deter you from it anymore, because it's not really an issue anymore. They've moved on for whatever reason. Maybe they've gotten bored, I don't know. I'm just happy that they've moved on. Or maybe Guerrilla Games patched it on the server side, although the Killzone 3 runs peer-to-peer of course, so I'm not sure if that would be possible, although as far as I'm aware, it possibly could. I'm not an expert in such matters. So let me know if you're going to pick this up, if you've already got Killzone 2 and 3, if you are going to pick up Killzone 1 on its own in the HD remake form, well, remake in quotation marks at least. And also let me know what you're most excited about regarding this collection. Personally, I'm most excited about being able to play just Killzone 1 again, and it's just an added bonus really to be able to actually play it in a HD resolution of 720p, even though I was kind of wishing or hoping it would be in 108p when I first started speculating that we would indeed get a Killzone 1 HD remake. Once again, not a true remake, just a HD update really. Anyway, this is Pedantic Gamer. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like and subscribe, as it does really help us out, and I do hope to see you next time.